Let's talk about psychoanalytic literary criticism. Just as the title suggests, this form of literary criticism derives its principles and guidelines from the field of psychology. Now, I do want to inform you first and foremost that your job as a critic is not to diagnose a character with an illness. You are not a doctor, and they are not your patients. Okay, let's get down to business. In order to be able to utilize this form of literary criticism, we first need to talk about the big names and theories in the field. One is Sigmund Freud. Critics in their analysis of a text use many of his concepts and theories. These include the id, ego, and superego, Freud's theory on the human psyche. Instead of giving you the breakdown of this concept, I want you to go to the following sites for information. Links can be found on my website and Dropbox. Your homework is to bring with you to class a summary of each of the three components. Another concept is the idea of the unconscious, which refers to the hidden forces, desires, and fears that exert influence over us in ways beyond our knowledge and control. Other things to consider from Freud are the inherent conflict between parent and child, the idea that stages of childhood development are natural and universal, and that childhood trauma has lasting effects. Another important figure in psychology we need to discuss is Jacques Lacan. Throughout his professional career, he responded and modified theories presented by Freud. He developed the idea of the symbolic order in regards to early childhood development. This is the structures of language, rules of social organization, and interpersonal limits on behavior and desire, the imposition of which mark the child's passage into subjectivity or differentiated selfhood. He believed that development is culturally specific, not natural and universal like Freud. For example, different cultures and societies have different expectations about the institution of marriage or how females and males should act. A social norm in one culture could be arranged marriage, while another may believe marriages should be at an older age and with someone of their own choosing. Whatever the case may be, individuals in society instill these values and expectations in their children at a young age. In terms of literary criticism, a psychoanalytic critic can use these principles and theories to analyze literary characters or societies in text. Now here's a breakdown of the core principles of psychoanalytic criticism as stated in Literary and Cultural Theory by Donald Hall. Number 1. The author's psychology affects the literature. A psychoanalytic critic may say that all characters and representations in the novel are manifestations of the author's psyche. You can examine the psychological health and biography of the author and determine if those factors may have a role in the text. Let's use the magical world of Harry Potter as an example here. The critic would look at J.K. Rowling, especially information about her life and childhood. We could examine if the characterization, themes, and plot details in her novel represent her experiences as a child or her own fears and desires. Characters in the text also have a complex psychology that can be analyzed using psychological theories. When analyzing the character of Harry Potter, we could examine how the events of his childhood affected his character throughout the series, especially with the separation from his parents at an early age. It could also be interesting to examine how the stages of human development differ between the cultures of the Muggles and the Wizarding world. The next two principles can help you in analyzing the psychology of both authors and characters of text. Number 3. Humans move through a series of development stages early in life. Within those stages, good and bad experiences can have lasting effects on an individual. This includes Freud's Oedipus complex and Lacan's theories on the separation of child and mother. It would be interesting to examine a novel that traces the entire life of a character, maybe something like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and analyze how early experiences affected the actions and thoughts of the character later on. And again, with Harry Potter, we have 7 novels detailing his formative years to analyze. Number 4. Human activity is not product of conscious intent alone, and both environment and biology play a role. Just like with Freud's idea of the unconscious, we are not always fully aware of our desires and wants. Biology factors can include mental disorders or genetic dispositions. Think about how brain chemistry can play a role in someone's behaviors or actions. On the other hand, environmental factors can also tell us important things about a character's psychology. For instance, how does their familial expectations play a role in their actions? Does Harry Potter want to be a great wizard because of his own desires or because of his family's reputation? Number 5. Text may have a psychological effect on the reader or fill a psychological need. This is important because we can begin to explain and analyze why we read particular texts. It can almost be a catharsis for the reader. They can experience situations, personalities, and settings that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. For instance, do you find yourself gravitating towards a certain genre of novel, such as the romances of Nicholas Sparks or the bloodthirsty arena of the Hunger Games? A critic can look at why texts appeal to certain readers. No matter what kind of approach or psychological principle you apply to your criticism, it is important to define terms throughout. Make sure the reader of your analysis can fully understand the terms you use in regards to the evidence you supply. In addition, everything in your analysis needs to be supported with textual evidence. Make sure you aren't forcing an analysis or meaning on the text. This concludes the brief look into psychoanalytic criticism.